Ever catch yourself staring up at the night sky and wondering, are we really alone out there?
Yeah.
Well, today, we're diving headfirst into that very question, UFOs. We're talking about those mysterious encounters, digging into the history, and maybe even separating some fact from fiction.
You know what I love about these deep dives is that we don't shy away from the good stuff. You guys wanted the real deal on UFOs, so we're going straight to the source. We're talking Wikipedia entries on UFO sightings, the whole 9 yards, and even a peek into what the U.S. National Security Agency has to say about it all. Buckle up.
It's like we're piecing together a giant puzzle with bits of history, science, and maybe even a dash of government intrigue. But before we go full X-Files, let's set the stage a bit right.
Couldn't agree more. You know, this whole idea of strange objects buzzing around in the sky, it's not just a modern-day fascination. We're talking centuries of stories, way before anyone even dreamed up airplanes, let alone the term UFO.
So we're talking way, way back.
Yeah.
But were those early sightings anything close to what we picture today when we hear UFO?
You might be surprised. Think about the Aurora, Texas airship crash back in 1897. We're talking decades before Roswell even happened. Newspapers back then, they were reporting this cigar-shaped thing crashing into a windmill, even stories about burying the pilot in a local cemetery. Wild stuff.
Get out. That's straight out of a movie, but from the 1800s.
Exactly. It really shows you these weird things in the sky, whatever you call them. They've been around a lot longer than people realize.
Makes you wonder if they were seeing the same things folks see today, just through a different lens, you know?
That's what's so cool about history. It's like getting a fresh perspective on what's happening right now. Okay, fast forward a bit, 1947. This is where things go boom, thanks to a pilot named Kenneth Arnold.
Oh yeah, Kenneth Arnold, the flying saucer guy, right?
Bingo. Picture this. He's flying near Mount Rainier, spots 9 weird objects zipping around in a way he'd never seen. He says they moved like a saucer would if you skipped it across the water. Bam. The media goes nuts and we get flying saucers.
It's amazing how that one phrase just stuck. I bet it's shaped how we picture UFOs even today.
It's wild, right? And get this, after Arnold's story, it's like the floodgates open. People everywhere were suddenly seeing these flying saucers.
Speaking of which, let's get to some of those head-scratching cases you dug up. We're talking mysterious lights, things breaking the laws of physics. Where do we even start?
Okay, how about this? Picture a quiet evening in England. It's October 5th, 2009, 1:15 p.m. A woman named Sharon Rollins is out filming the night sky. All of a sudden, boom, this bright object just glides into view, and it hangs around for a good while.
Okay, spooky. But was she the only one who saw this thing?
Nope, not a chance. Other folks in the area, they reported weird lights that same night. One person even said it was like a pink glow, shaped like a shoebox. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never seen a pink shoebox flying around.
You got multiple witnesses. A seriously strange description. Sounds like a classic UFO encounter to me. And wasn't there a huge one in the U.S. on Halloween in 2004?
You're thinking of the Tinley Park lights. Thousands of people in Illinois saw this. They said it was like a formation of red lights moving across the sky without a sound. And we're not talking quick glimpses. People were watching this thing, taking pictures, even filming it for a while.
Okay, that's way too many people for it to be just a weather balloon or something, right?
Uh,
What could possibly explain that many people seeing the same thing?
The million-dollar question, right? Was it like mass hysteria, everyone misinterpreting what they were seeing? Or was it something truly, well, unidentified? This is the kind of stuff that keeps UFO researchers up at night.
Speaking of people who spend a lot of time looking at the sky, what about that case with the Mexican Air Force back in 2004?
Ah, no, that's a good one. This one's fascinating because it involves the pros, right? They were out searching for drug smugglers, but their infrared cameras pick up these unexplained lights. You can bet it caused a major stir.
No kidding. So what were those lights? Did anyone figure it out?
Well, this is where things take a turn. After they really investigated, turned out those mysterious lights, they weren't alien spaceships after all. Nope, just really big flares from oil platforms out in the Bay of Campeche.
So a case of mistaken identity, but it just goes to show you, even with technology, our eyes can play tricks on us. But I'm guessing even the experts can't explain everything, right? There have to be some cases where even the pros are stumped.
You're right about that. Some things even the pros just can't explain. Remember that whole thing with the USS Nimitz back in 2004? Off the coast of San Diego.
Oh yeah, the one with the Navy pilots? That video footage was wild.
That's the one. So you've got these pilots, right, from the VFA 41 Squadron, flying their FA-18 Super Hornets. They get orders to check out some unidentified objects their radar picked up. And they see them. They actually see these things. They even get infrared video. These objects, they're doing things that just shouldn't be possible, flying in ways we can't explain. The Navy, they said, yep, that's our video, it's real, but they still call it unexplained aerial phenomena. It's crazy.
It's one thing to have some blurry picture someone snapped, but this is trained Navy pilots.
Yeah.
With all their fancy radar and everything, and they're capturing it on video. That adds a whole other level of woe to the whole UFO thing, doesn't it?
Seriously. Who knows what they really saw that day? Okay, switching gears for a sec. Let's talk about something that probably hits closer to home for a lot of people. The O'Hare International Airport thing in 2006.
O'Hare? That's a major airport. I bet that freaked some people out.
Oh, big time. So you've got all these witnesses, people who work for United Airlines, even some pilots. They said it was this saucer-shaped thing, no lights or anything, just hovering over one of the terminals. Then poof, gone. Straight up, crazy fast, like it was never even there.
Can you imagine seeing that right over an airport like that? You'd think someone would have some explanation for that, right?
You'd think, wouldn't you? But nope, tons of witnesses, potential issues for the whole airspace thing, and still, no real explanation. It really makes you wonder what kind of tech it would take for something to move like that.
Mind-blowing. Let's jump across the pond again to 2007 this time. The Alderney UFO sighting, right? Off the coast of Alderney in the UK.
Oh, this one's a doozy. We're talking 2 different airline pilots, 2 different flights, both report this sunlight-colored object. And get this, passengers on both flights saw it too. One of the pilots even went as far as to file a report with Britain's Civil Aviation Authority.
2 trained pilots, multiple witnesses, an official report. It's like we're seeing a pattern here. More and more credible people are reporting these things. What other interesting sightings did you find?
Oh, there was one they called the Dudley Dorito. A whole series of sightings, actually, between 2007 and 2013, over in the West Midlands of the UK.
The Dudley Dorito. Okay, that's a pretty funny name for a UFO.
I know, right? But don't let the name fool you. This was a big deal. Lots of people, totally independent of each other, were seeing the same thing, this black triangular object. They called it the Dudley Dorito because of its shape and because it always seemed to show up near Dudley.
That's wild. It's like they're UFO hotspots, places they like to hang out. Speaking of hanging out, wasn't there that incident with the police helicopter back in 2008 in Wales?
Yeah, the South Wales Police. These guys were in their helicopter flying over the Bristol Channel when they had to dodge a saucer-shaped UFO. And we're talking trained police helicopter pilots, people who don't scare easily, having to take evasive action.
You know, it really makes you think.
Yeah.
If these trained professionals are having these close encounters, what does that say about what these objects actually are?
It's a question people have been asking for decades, but we have to remember, even the most trained observer can misinterpret what they're seeing, especially in weird or stressful situations.
Right. Got to stay grounded. It's a tough balance, being open-minded, but also skeptical. Speaking of skepticism, what about that whole Morristown UFO hoax thing?
Oh, that's a perfect example of how easy it is to get tricked and how powerful a good hoax can be. So in Morristown, New Jersey, everyone's freaking out because they see 5 red lights in the sky. Aliens.
Right.
Except, not so much. Turns out it was 2 guys just messing with everyone, launching helium balloons with flares attached.
Case closed. A good reminder that not everything up there is from another planet. Sometimes the simplest explanation is the right one, even if it's a little bit of a letdown.
Totally. Okay, now here's a case that at first people thought was a hoax too, but it turned out to be something else entirely. The Norwegian spiral anomaly back in 2009. Remember that?
Oh, how could I forget? The pictures were insane. This giant blue spiral thing with a white tail spiraling across the sky. It looked like something straight out of a movie.
Right. People were throwing out all sorts of theories, black holes, alien portals, you name it. But after a lot of head scratching and analyzing, they figured out it was a Russian missile test gone wrong. The spiral, just the missile's exhaust lit up by the sun at a weird angle.
You can't make this stuff up. It's like they say, reality is stranger than fiction, right? But it just shows that even the craziest, most unexplainable events, sometimes science can find an answer. What other recent sightings do we need to know about?
Well, the USS Theodore Roosevelt incidents back in 2014 are a big one. The Navy pilots on the Roosevelt, after they upgraded their systems, started reporting these objects on their radar, things they couldn't explain. Some of them couldn't see anything with their own eyes, but others, they got video. And these videos, they showed these objects doing things that just seemed impossible, like they were breaking the laws of physics.
And those reports, weren't they a big part of why they started that super secret program, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program?
Exactly. Those incidents plus the videos really got people talking about UFOs again. And it pushed the government to be more open and structured about looking into these unexplained things in the sky. It was a big turning point in how seriously they took it.
So we've gone from a time of government hush-hush to a more open, more research-focused approach. That's really interesting. But it's not just about what the government's doing anymore, is it?
You're right. It's bigger than that now. More and more scientists are starting to take this whole UAP thing seriously. They're bringing real science to the table, trying to figure out what's going on.
That's awesome. I mean, think about it. If even one of these UAPs, just one, turns out to be aliens, that would be the biggest discovery in history.
No doubt about it. But like with anything in science, we've got to be excited but cautious, right?
Mm-hmm.
Extraordinary claims need extraordinary evidence.
True. We've got to be open to the possibility of the unknown, but not just jump to conclusions. Which brings us to the skeptic's toolkit, right? How do we look at these sightings with a critical eye? What are some things we should be thinking about before we shout, "Aliens!" from the rooftops?
Love that question. That's the heart of really understanding this whole thing, right? Think of it like this. The skeptic's toolkit, it's like a set of tools for your brain. It helps you figure out what's real and what's not, especially when things seem too good to be true. It doesn't mean saying nope to everything. It's about thinking critically and looking for the most likely explanation. With UFOs, a lot of times that means understanding how our own brains can trick us and how easy it is to misinterpret what we see.
So what kind of things are we talking about? What are some of the classic UFO mix-ups?
Well, you'd be surprised how often people mistake totally normal things in space for UFOs. Stars, planets, even meteors. Especially when you see them at certain angles or in certain weather conditions, they can look like they're moving in crazy ways.
I've totally done that. Stared at a light in the sky for way too long, convinced it was moving, only to realize it was just a planet.
Happens to the best of us. Another big one is aircraft. Think about it. Commercial planes, military jets, even those experimental ones, they can look pretty strange if you don't see them every day.
Oh, and don't forget about drones. Those things are everywhere now, and at night, they can definitely look like something out of this world.
For sure. And then there's light playing tricks on us. Optical illusions, reflections, even the air itself can bend and distort light. All that can create some pretty wild visual effects that seem otherworldly when they're really not.
So sometimes it's not aliens. It's just our brains trying to make sense of something weird we're seeing, right? Like our brains are wired to look for patterns, even when there aren't any.
Exactly. It's called pareidolia. It's why we see faces in clouds or animals in random shapes. Our brains are always trying to figure things out, and sometimes that means seeing something amazing when it's really just a trick of the light.
Okay, so the skeptic's toolkit helps keep our feet on the ground. But that doesn't mean it explains every single UFO sighting out there, right?
Right. It's not about dismissing everything. It's about being smart and looking for the best explanation. And you know what? Sometimes, even after all that, even after we've been skeptical and ruled everything out, there are still those cases that make you go, I don't know about that one.
And those are the cases that keep us coming back for more, right? The ones that make us curious, that make us wonder if there really is something amazing out there in the universe. But it's not just about the sightings themselves, is it? There's this whole cultural fascination with UFOs. This whole thing goes way beyond just believing in aliens.
100%. UFOs, they're not just these things in the sky anymore. They're part of our culture. Movies, music, books, even our deepest fears and dreams, they've all been touched by this idea.
It's true. Think about all the stories out there, the movies, the TV shows, even songs about UFOs and aliens. We just can't get enough of it. Why do you think we're so obsessed with this stuff?
You know, I think it's because it speaks to something deep down inside us. This curiosity we have, this need to explore the unknown, maybe even this hope that we're not alone. UFOs, they're a mystery, a puzzle we're all trying to solve together. They challenge what we think we know about the universe and force us to admit that there's a lot we don't know.
It's like when you look up at the stars and you realize how huge and mysterious the universe is, how much is out there. It's both awe-inspiring and a little bit scary at the same time, you know?
Exactly. And then you add in real-life events like that Kenneth Arnold sighting back in '47, and it just explodes. That one event, it captured everyone's imagination and basically launched the modern UFO craze.
It's amazing how one pilot's experience could have such a huge impact on our entire culture. It just shows how powerful stories are, how much we need to make sense of the world around us.
Absolutely. And don't forget about the whole Cold War thing. That played a big part too. All that anxiety about nuclear war, about the unknown, about hidden enemies, it all fed into our fascination with UFOs.
Right, our ideas about UFOs, they're always being shaped by the world around us, what's happening in the news, what we're afraid of. But at its core, I think it all comes down to something pretty simple. We're curious, and we really, really want to believe that we're not alone in the universe.
Perfectly said. And that brings us to some big questions, something to think about as we wrap up our deep dive. If there are so many different explanations for UFOs, what would it take to convince us once and for all that we're not alone? What kind of proof would it take to end the debate?
That's the million-dollar question, right? If only there was an easy answer.
I know, right? But it's something to think about. And here's another one. How have our ideas about UFOs changed over time? And where are those ideas headed next? Will we always see them as these mysterious objects in the sky? Or will we actually figure out what they are someday?
So many questions, so much to explore. We've only got time for one more quick break, but when we come back, we'll wrap up our UFO deep dive with some final thoughts and some resources you can check out to learn even more. It's wild to think about how UFOs have gone from those grainy photos to being all over pop culture.
It's true, they're everywhere you look these days. Movies, shows, you name it. We love to imagine what's out there.
Totally. Like, remember Close Encounters of the Third Kind or E.T.? Those movies weren't just sci-fi, they made people feel something, like anything was possible.
And who could forget the X-Files? That show really tapped into that fear people have of conspiracies, of the government hiding stuff.
Yeah, the truth is out there, right? But it goes deeper than that, I think. The X-Files, all those stories, they make us think about wanting to connect with something bigger than ourselves, hoping we're not alone.
Exactly. It's not about wanting to see a UFO, it's about questioning everything, our place in the universe,
Like realizing there might be something more out there, something we don't understand yet.
That's the beauty of this whole UFO thing, isn't it? It forces us to admit we don't know everything, that there are still mysteries to solve.
But it's humbling, in a way, right? We like to think we've got it all figured out, but then you have these UFO sightings, and you realize we've still got a lot to learn.
Totally. And it makes you wonder, what will we discover next? What else is out there just waiting to be found?
That's the exciting part. Well, this has been an amazing deep dive. I've learned so much. Thanks for taking us on this journey from those early sightings to the government investigations to the cultural impact. It's been fascinating.
The pleasure was all mine. I hope it's made everyone listening want to go out and learn even more about this stuff.
Absolutely. Don't forget to check out the show notes. We've got links to everything we talked about so you can keep exploring.
And remember, keep your eyes on the sky, but don't forget your skeptic's toolkit.
Until next time, keep asking questions, keep an open mind, and keep searching for the truth.